Dear colleagues, dear guests, I'm very proud to declare the workshop with the title Vladimir Жаботинский, a public and political figure, writer, poet, translator, author of political essays, open at Yaroslavl State University, named after Pavel Demidov. We already have a short-term discussion before this workshop with our colleagues from Z'Boutinskii Institute of Tel Aviv in Israel. And today we'll have a unique chance to make our reports about the Z'Boutinski's works and his life and his political life and everything connected with him. He graduated from our university in 1912. He got a diploma of our university. He's a candidate of law in our old terms of Russian Empire. So we are very proud of that, and today we have a chance to kind of work out issues for the next meetings, for the next ideas, for our cultural exchange, for some other workshops on literature, on journalism, etc., etc. So if you have ideas, it's the right place to put them forward. And I'll give the microphone and the floor to Albina Yegorova.
Dear all, let me make a brief introduction of our honorable guests. First, we are pleased to have among our participants of the workshop the representatives of the Yaroslavl region, government and administration, Anton Simonov, advisor to the governor, and Maria Kravchenko, deputy head of the International Relations Office. I'm pleased to introduce the representatives of the Z'Boutinskii Institute in Israel. Yossi Ahimeir, chairman of the Z'Boutinskii Institute in Israel. Yossi Ahimeir is also a journalist and editor-in-chief, and Mr. Ahimeir is the honorable citizen of the Ramat Gan, the city where he has been living since 1952. And some other facts about his professional background. Mr. Ahimeir used to work as a political assistant to Prime Minister and then director of the Prime Minister's Bureau. In 2005, he was appointed the Director General of the Z'Boutinskii Institute in Israel, and since 2017, he has been serving as chairman of the institute. Please meet our honorable guest, Gideon Michnik, Director General of the Z'Boutinskii Institute in Israel. His professional career is closely linked with the Israel Defense Forces. Mr. Michnik served as intelligence assistant to 3 ministers of defense. He used to serve as deputy director of the History Department, Israel Defense Forces, and director of History and Heritage Branch, Military Intelligence Directorate. The professional experience of Gideon Michnik is quite diverse and profound. Mr. Michnik has been engaged in several social projects and various events to spread knowledge on heritage and theory of Israel and history of Israel. Well, another honorable member of the delegation, Mr. Aryeh Naor. Aryeh Naor is chairperson of the academic committee of the Z'Boutinskii Institute and chief editor of the new scientific edition of Z'Boutinskii ideological and political works. Aryeh Naor served as secretary to the cabinet in Menachem Begin administration. He is a retired professor at Ben-Gurion University and Hadassah Academic College, and the author of several books and many dozens of articles on politics and Israel and government of Israel. Please meet another honorable guest of us, Ariel Bulstein. Mr. Bulstein is a practicing lawyer and currently serves as advisor to the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. He formerly served as head of public diplomacy for the Euro-Asian Jewish Congress. Ariel Bulstein was also a founder and a chief executive officer of the leading Israel advocacy organization, the Face of Israel. In addition, he has been a lecturer in the field of Israel studies and a senior columnist for a newspaper. Mr. Bulstein serves as deputy chairman of the International Committee of the Israel Bar, board member of the Z'Bоtiנסקי Institute, and board member of the Z'Bоtiנסקי Council at the Prime Minister's Office. And I'm pleased to introduce our colleague, Professor Leonid Katsis, Doctor of Philology, Director of the Center for Biblical Studies and Jewish Studies at the Russian State University for the Humanities, Moscow. Professor Katsis is the author of books and articles on Russian Jewry and editor of the monograph Jewishness in Russian Culture, Within and Without. Yesterday, Professor Katsis was the moderator and speaker at the similar academic event held in Moscow. And for today's seminar, he has chosen another topic related to Z'Bоtiנסקי and the Volga region. Dear colleagues, we have some time for greetings, yes, and I give the floor to Anton Simonov.
Thank you. Дорогие друзья, от лица правительства области позвольте поприветствовать всех участников международного семинара, посвященного великому общественному и политическому деятелю XX века Владимиру Жаботинскому. Dear friends, on behalf of the regional government, let me welcome all the participants in the international conference dedicated to the great public and political figure of the 20th century, Vladimir Жаботинский. The French politician and writer Anatole de Monzy, in his book Extraordinary Fates, wrote, "It is impossible to find a person like Z'Bоtiנסקי. His life was even more unusual than the legends created about him. The concept of Z'Bоtiנסקי is unique and one of a kind in the history of the Jewish people. Unique and unique. This was the view of Z'Bоtiנסקי by his contemporaries, Jews and non-Jews, and this is how he entered the history of the Jewish revival and took a special place in it. The idea of holding a seminar on the life and work of Vladimir Z'Bоtiנסקי arose in April of this year, during the official visit of the extraordinary plenipotentiary ambassador of the State of Israel, Harry Cohen. And it is no coincidence, because Yaroslavl and the Dimitrov University are an integral part of the biography of Vladimir Z'Bоtiנסקי, a fighter, publicist, writer, and one of the most prominent figures of the era of the national revival of the Jewish people. This was a heroic person who left an indelible mark in history. His ideas came true and deeply rooted in the people. Many of Z'Bоtiנסky's predictions about the fate of Jewish and many Western European nations came true, but unfortunately, he did not live up to them or realize his main dream, the creation of an independent Jewish state, writes Israel. Our seminar is an important cultural event in the life of Yaroslavl region, which will serve as another step towards strengthening our partnerships, greater mutual understanding, and strong friendship between the two peoples. I hope that the exchange of views on key issues on our common history will be useful and regular. Once again, let me congratulate all those present on the seminar and wish them continued success and strengthen peace, friendship, and trust between the two countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simonov. And on the right of on the part of the Z'Bоtiנסקי Institute, Mr. Yossi Ahimeir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Simonov, Professor Usakov, researchers, students, guests. Thank you very much, first of all, for the kindly reception that we were accepted here in this university, in this city. It's the first time that we, or at least me, visiting your wonderful city and this great university. For us, it's like closing a circle, because we represent, or we bring, the Z'Bоtiנסky's heritage to everyone in Israel and abroad. And here we are doing it in a place where he got 107 years ago the diploma in law here in Yaroslavl. So it's, as I said, it's like closing the circle. I would like to speak in Russian, but I don't speak Russian. I was born in Israel, in Jerusalem, many years ago, by the way. And, by the way, my wife is from Riga, so she speaks well Russian and Latvian. but I didn't make it. And I would like to speak, of course, our national language, Hebrew, but you know, few of you know Hebrew, so we will make a compromise, and the seminar will be taken place mainly in English. We can talk a lot about Z'bוטינסקי because he was like a Renaissance figure. He was author, he was poet, he was publicist, politician. He was great leader, one of the greatest leader in the Jewish history in the 20th century. And one of his activities was to renew and to promote our national language, the Hebrew. He knew 10 languages, by the way. His two main languages that he wrote and speak were, of course, Russian and Hebrew. And thanks to him, Hebrew has been renewed and became everyday national language in the state of Israel. So this is one of his great achievements as an educator, as an intellectual, and we are very proud of this. As we say, he divides his life, or his life has been divided into two periods. And he was born in Odessa in 1980, and he became a famous Russian journalist. And in 1903, he came to Kishinev. Maybe you're aware about what happened in Kishinev in severe, cruel pogrom against the Jews lived in that city. It became a terrible event in the history of especially the Jews, and it made a great impact on him. So I can say that he left his activity, not absolutely, but he left his activity as being just a journalist and a writer, and he decided to dedicate his next life to the cause of the Jewish people, his people. He knew that the fate of the Jews in Europe is very bad. He cautious his people from what is going to be in the coming years, and we know what happened in the Second World War, mainly to the Jewish people here in Russia, that the 6 million that were lost in the Shoah, in the Holocaust by the Nazi Germans. He cautious his people, and he divided his whole activity to make the Jewish people as a normal people, not as a people that is dispersed in Russia, in all other countries, but people that has its own country, its own language, its own government, its own army, its own land. And this dream has become a reality in 1948. So we can speak a lot about all his contribution to make our independence a reality as a Jewish state. I would say that if he would open his eyes, he died 8 years before the establishment of the state in 1940, by the way, in New York. And 8 years afterwards, the state has been established by fighting, by bloodshedding, as unfortunately this was this what happened, but we achieved our rights for our historical land as he preached for. And I would say that if he would open nowadays his eyes, he would be proud about the state that he dreamt about, our achievement, our place in the world. And we have now in Israel 9 million citizens, 7 of them Jews, 2 million are non-Jews, most of them, of course, Arabs, Muslims. All of them are equal by their rights as he dreamt. He was nationalist, but he was very liberal in all aspects of life. So Israel is a democracy. Israel is a state that give all rights to all its citizens. And still we are, as you know, in a situation that our very existence is in some aspect is in risk. We are surrounded by some countries, by some, let's say, organizations that threaten to liquidate the Jewish state. But thank God we have a great answer to this threatening, and we are sure that our existence will be ensured forever, as we say. We are very grateful for the relations that we have, the State of Israel, with your great country, with Russia. It is an historical relationship. Speaking about languages, you know that in Israel you can manage in Russian. If you are coming to visit Israel, you will manage very well in Russian, while if I come to Russia and try to speak Hebrew, I will not manage. But in Israel you will manage with Russian, because many Jews from Russia decided to come to their homeland, and they are like a bridge between our two countries. And Z'Botinsky himself is the bridge between our two countries. By the way, personal remark, if I will say, speaking about the year of 1912, when Z'Botinsky got here his diploma in law, in that year, 1912, my late father came from Belarus to Israel. 107 years ago, he came to Israel and became one of the also leaders of the Z'Botinsky movement. So it's a historical year for me personally, as you say. I again want to thank you very much, Professor Osakov, and to your colleagues for the kind reception that you are giving us and arranging this important seminar. We consider it as a very important one, and we consider it as just as the beginning of cooperation between your university and our institute. Our institute is not university, it's institute, as I say, archive and museum in Tel Aviv. We are now in the midst of enlarging it. So thank you very much, and I'm sure that if I say one more word, I suggested, Professor Osakov, in our previous meeting, that maybe you will put a plaque on one of the walls in this university signing that Z'Botinsky was one of the graduates of your great university. So thank you for you, Mr. Simonov, for your wonderful words that we heard. Really, we enjoyed. And thank you again for your reception and for the seminar. And we wish you all success and enjoy the seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Achimei.